welcome to Master Muse, Colvin Hooser.
Understand.
How are you feeling today?
Good. How are you?
Okay. I'm a little frazzled, as you saw. Here she comes running in right at the last, minutes late. But that happens sometimes. Also, I'm very loud in my head today. I literally don't know how we're gonna manage why I'm so loud. Okay, what we're gonna do is we're gonna start at the very beginning because it's a very good place to start. Okay, Colvin,
Yes.
tell me what your relationship with music was as a child. What was happening in your household? Were we listening to music? It was only in the car? It was everywhere? What were you listening to?
Really mostly in the car. My parents, I do remember having one of those gigantic entertainment centers, that takes up like half the living room with the TV in one end and the record player in the other end.
Right.
And a pretty steady diet of things like Tennessee Ernie Ford and people from that era. And my mother's family was somewhat musical. My grandmother on my father's side played piano. And so I was kind of around a lot of music. My dad always told me he wished he'd played the trombone. So we listened to a lot of Glenn Miller and things like that, and early on. So and of course church and singing hymns and all of that stuff, um, and started playing cello when I was in the 5th grade.
Okay, and what made you choose the cello?
Because I was too short to play the violin. Okay, that doesn't sound right. The school did not have any more 3/4 size violins.
Okay,
And
so you were a little fella.
I wasn't tall enough to play a 4/4 violin.
Okay.
But they had 3/4 cellos, so so they had 3/4 size cellos.
I think this is a lot of how it gets chosen in schools. Like, yeah, we don't have one of those for you, babe. How about this big thing over here? You want to try that? And you're like, I guess. I don't pretend.
Exactly.
I don't know.
Yeah, I was like, sure, something. And
Okay.
yeah, and
And
then
what did you think about when you started the process of starting to read music? I mean, were you taking it home with you and practicing, or was it just
no,
okay?
carrying it back and forth to school and practicing it. Yeah.
So everybody was like, "You're the cool kid."
Yeah, so everyone was subjected to that in my house. So, but I'm an only child, so my parents just thought it was wonderful. So,
Of course they did. It was the best thing ever.
yes.
I heard that note right, honey. That was good. That one note that you got in between 82 other ones. I heard
And
it.
it didn't sound like we threw the cat out the window,
Oh, okay. Did you enjoy the process of learning an instrument? What was your feeling about
I
being a
did, because
student?
apparently I just kept learning more instruments, because the next year I quit playing cello altogether and started playing trumpet. And
Oh, what a switch.
yeah, and then went to middle school or junior high. Actually, I was in junior high, and and ended up switching to French horn,
Okay. Okay, another brass.
another brass, and then somewhere along the way there, I think it was in like a summer music program. I played played trombone, but just for just for that summer, didn't really play it very much at all. Stayed playing French horn, which was another just odd choice, but
It's pretty. That's what I would say about the
yeah,
French horn.
yeah.
It's really pretty.
And went to college the first time on a French horn scholarship. And,
Oh, wow.
And then realized once I got to college that there was not much way to make a living being a French horn player. And so
It's so disappointing.
yeah, and then
Like becoming an adult is just like one disappointment after another. What do you mean? Like there's not a big demand for French horn players?
yeah,
Well, there's not a lot of. Okay. Well, then okay. So then what? Then you're thinking.
so and then through a bunch of really weird circumstantial things, I ended up switching to being a guitar major when because I've been playing guitar since I was 15 or 16, and
Okay.
and so end up switching to a guitar major. Then crazy things happened at the school. They went through a bunch of changes. They got rid of their guitar majors, guitar degrees all together. We literally got a letter in the summer that said, "Sorry, don't come back." And
Excuse me, I've already had my dreams crushed with the French horn. This is a guitar, dude.
yeah,
Like, what are you talking about? It's
yeah,
guitar.
yeah.
We're never going to get rid of the guitar.
No. So, so then oddly, I grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and there was no state college in Tulsa. They're all over. They're down by Oklahoma City, and so there was only like two private schools and a junior college, a state junior college there. So I went to the junior college and um, played guitar in like the jazz band and played. They had like a community orchestra that was through the community college, so I played horn with them, um, and took like all the music classes that there were at the community college, uh, and then uh, just by really sheerly odd happenstance, I ended up being able to kind of hang out and sort of work at the what is now the church studio, the Leon Russell's old studio in Tulsa.
Okay.
Leon did not own it at that time; he had sold it. But so I worked for the next set of people that were running that studio. And if you ever get down there, it's a great. You can tour it, and it is still a working recording studio. So
Very cool.
and
That's on my list to make my way across the United States, visiting the most famous and most popular recording studios.
yeah, so it's and they have also have a museum that is part of the building. So there's a lot of stuff about the Tulsa sound and the folks that uh, were really influenced by Leon Russell, like Clapton and who recorded there, and just all the things. Yeah, so uh, and Ringo recorded there. I mean, just it's a who's who thing from
We
that
gotta
era.
we have to have a list of all of the famous people that have walked through and whistled their wonder at us.
So I went to college the first time, then I went to junior college, then I was working at the church studio and playing with some well-known Tulsa folks here and there, and then met my wife, and she was just graduating from the University of Arkansas and had a job in Arkansas. So I went to the University of Arkansas, and lo and behold, they had a guitar degree. We got married over the summer, and she started in August or whatever that was, and I
Okay.
went to school then. And I went to jazz band the first day, and there were like four guitar players, but no bass player. And I said, I think I see an opportunity here. So I switched to bass, and that's worked out well. A
Okay,
couple
and what did
times.
you feel like? I mean, because I have a friend who plays the guitar, and I have a friend that plays the bass guitar. And when I went over there one time to my friend who has the bass guitar, I was like, I want to try this. This seems this seems good. First of all, who doesn't love the bass note of all things? I have a tendency to sing it. I have another interview that I did who's also a bassist, and I was saying, is it weird that I hum the bass note when I'm trying to figure out how to play a song? That maybe that would mean I could be a good bass player.
Since you're playing the root of the chord, a lot of time that totally makes sense, and that's when I'm figuring out a song. That's exactly what I do. Is I see if I can hum the bass line, and then I can usually
Okay.
figure out what key it's in from that.
Okay. So maybe not completely correlated, but maybe mostly correlated to the fact that I play by ear. It seems like a very, like, the vibe of a bassist, in my opinion, would be like somebody who's like super chill, but yet carrying such huge responsibility with their plunkety plunk 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 on like like
Yeah,
you're holding the whole fort down, but
yeah.
like so chill about it.
I always tease with guitar players that hey, I can make you sound bad. And,
Right. I can ruin what you're doing.
yeah,
That
I
riff could
absolutely
sound
can.
terrible if I play the wrong note.
Because I can play different notes and it'll sound like yeah. Uh,
Not that there's any competition between
no, not at all.
guitar and the bass players. Not that there's any kind of weirdness there of who is better and who's more important. Although guitar players do seem to be a little more showy.
Uh, they do, and I think it really is a personality thing. I do
Yes.
think, and uh, because it seems like anyway that certain certain personality types gravitate toward being bass players.
Did you find that to be true for you, even though you were going to school to major in guitar, once you realized that not much for the French horn? Oh,
Yeah.
still, for the French horn. We love the French horn. It's so pretty. If you're playing the French horn out there, you can. You may switch to the guitar,
You may
but
switch
it's
to
okay.
bass. There's a
You
lot of
may switch.
French horn players that end up playing bass.
What do you
John,
think the correlation is of that?
I have no idea. But John
Oh, we need to
Entwistle from
study
The
that.
Who was a French horn player.
That is cool. Now I need to study this. I'm going to be Googling the heck out of this tonight and be like, how many French horn players then transfer to basses? And they're like, 2.
Yeah, exactly.
Still, we know 2, and that is more than 1, and therefore must be a phenomenon of some
get the
sort.
little AI summary, 2.
And you happen to talk to one of them today. Okay, so not so unusual that you switched from French horn to guitar, well, to bass. But when you got into that role, did you think, oh, I should have been doing this all along?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
I'm pretty functional on guitar. I'm doing a show later in a couple of months that I'm going to be playing guitar with a pit orchestra for a musical, and I'm fine.
Oh, how fun! Okay, let's get to that in
Okay.
a minute. I definitely want to talk about that.
Okay.
Okay, what about playing the bass felt right, good, comfortable?
That's a really good question. It was something almost weirdly, I don't know. It's one of those things. I just started playing. I had bass because I had plunked around and played in um, a couple of bands. Actually, just one band where I actually was the bass player because they had way too many guitar players who were better than I was. So I ended up playing bass. But there was something weirdly like, oh, okay, this is home. It was just very comfortable for me to do. Plus, I only had to bring one bass and one amp, and I wasn't trying to cart 5 guitars around to every
There
gig.
is that.
And
I found out something today that, and I don't know if I haven't been saying I'm going to be interviewing a bassist on Saturday. I have not been saying that to my phone, and yet my phone knows. And so today, whilst I was scrolling social media, I come across this video, and it was somebody like at some kind of convention or something asking other bassists, how often do you change your strings? And every single one of them, well, 90% of them were like, never. Or I've changed them once. Is this a normal thing?
it actually is, especially if you're playing the flat wound strings. Yeah.
They don't break, or they also get better with age, or both?
They get thumpier with age. They start to lose some of that high harmonic content the
Ooh,
older
they
they
get
get.
thumpier. Oh, I
And
love that.
yeah, so I mean, and that goes all the way back to the Motown guys like James Jamerson and stuff that like never change strings, and they played these really, really thumpy sounding bass lines that were just have almost no sustain to them. But yeah, they're super percussive the older they get. So
That is so cool. I would have never known that, but I was like, what is going on? Have you been reading my wall? Like
yeah.
I don't have a digital, I mean, obviously I have it in my computer, I guess, but it doesn't say that you're a bassist. It doesn't say that. It just has your name. So I have your name. Anyway, I don't know how it knew that we were going to talk. It was just the universe dropping a little tidbit that I could throw into this interview. I said, thank you very much. Give me something to chat about so I can find out if it's true and what that does. As I said in our, little introduction before we got all this set up for today, my goal is to not just entertain, because that's super fun, but also learn. I was probably supposed to be some kind of teacher, but then I found out about dealing with parents, and I was like, no, thank you. And homework,
Yes.
no, thank you.
Yeah.
So that talked me out of it. But so this is my way
I
of
see.
teaching.
Yeah.
So allowing other
I do
people.
change strings though. So because I do a fair amount of outdoor work in the summertime, and they're
Okay.
just nasty. But
They get all filled.
yeah, they're grungy and dirty, and I've sweated all over them, and yeah, yucky.
Okay. So there are reasons that you
Yes.
would but that's what happens once you've let the strings go forever. I like it. We are now in the jazz band.
Yep,
We are the one bassist to begin
pretty
with.
much. Yeah.
And you're like, okay, I found my niche.
Yes.
I'm home. What was your thought or plan at that point?
Um, at that point, I really thought I would end up going to Nashville and trying to work my way in there. Because I had done a little bit of studio playing and been around the studio working for the church and stuff, and thought that's kind of where my path lied. It turned out not to be the case, but it's what you think when you're doing the things. Um, I ended up staying and doing my master's in music theory at Arkansas. So
So you really liked understanding all of the ins and the
I
outs.
do, yeah, yes.
Okay.
I tell my students now because I teach at a community college as well. So, but I tell them now, yeah, I'm like the music mechanic. I open up the hood and look at all the parts and go, oh, see how that went together.
And that was the thing that I mean, I took a lot of it in high school. I really did. So many classes of music theory. And I just would be like, oh, can we just, okay, but when do we get to the part where I can play, or when do we get to the part where I can sing, and why do I have to understand all this? So tell me, as the very naughty student that I was, I would have been your worst. You would have loved me. I'm not going to lie. You would have loved me and favored me because I'm delightful. And yet, terribly undisciplined when it comes to just doing the rote things, the things that, like practicing the scales on my piano. I was terrible at. I'm following my neighbor to get that first note because I can't, I don't.
To tell you the truth, I don't really. I don't want to roll that out there. I I I'm not a huge fan of the way music theory is taught in a lot of schools
Okay.
because in my class, if you take that class, I know it's a community college, so all it teaches fundamentals of music. So that's the
Right.
how to read and write. That's that first semester. Some schools, it's that precursor to music theory one, and uh, but you have to write for me. That's the final project is you have to write a piece of music because I don't care how well you read, tenor clef or like, can you put together what we've learned in this class with melodies and scales and harmony and make something with it? Because I feel like if you can't, I've missed the boat somewhere as a teacher.
Right. So, I mean, I'm sure I could do it. I understand enough of it. I understand the value of the notes. I can count it out. I can do it. I was the kid that was, okay, play that. And I go, one more time. And I'd go, okay. And I'd play it because, and without looking at the music, I could look at the music and see, okay, that is what you played. I know that logically that it makes sense. I could see the notes, the quarter notes, the eighth notes, or wherever they are. But it was just so much easier just to listen to it and do it. So could I write it out? I mean, yeah, but like, and that was the main thing when I was a kid was like, Heather, how are you going to learn? Because I used to write instrumental piano pieces, real popular when you're 11. And my mom would be like, "What can you? I got you music sheet paper. Can you put it on that?" And I was like, "The notes, there's too many."
Too many notes.
Just like, you know, it just sounded exhausting. And I was always waiting, like one day there'll be a computer where I can plug my piano into the computer and play,
Hmm.
and it'll just appear on the screen for me. And
Yes.
it'll tell me what key it's in, and it'll tell me, what time signature it's in. And, and I won't have to worry about a dotted eighth note I won't have to think about any of that stuff.
It's
But that wasn't to my benefit because now I can't read music very well.
um and this is a weird thing, but I don't think I read music as well as someone with a master's degree in music theory should read music. I'm not the best sight reader that ever was, but it's a weird thing because I've talked about this with other music types, and it's that weird spot. Are you really reading? Are you interpreting music or reading music? Uh, because let's face it, sometimes those things that are played don't translate very well to being dots on the page. Like, yeah, I can figure the pitches out, but what's the rhythm? That's to me, that's the hardest
Right.
part. Well, like when I hear somebody playing something, it's like, oh, that's really cool sounding, but how does that work rhythmically? And that's harder. But now, when I teach foundations of music now, I have them use this free software that you don't really have to know how to play piano or really any instrument, that you can write notes. It will play them back for you so you can tell if that's what you wanted it to sound like and the whole
Mm.
thing. And because I have some students come in with zero music background into that class, and that doesn't shake me. Okay, we'll just go from like
Why
nobody
are they
knows
taking it?
anything.
Just because they have interest?
Yeah, because it fills
Okay.
a slot in their in their humanities credit for
Okay. That sounds easy. I'll take that. Easy A? Easy is an easy A? No,
I'm
not
always
an
kind of
easy.
fascinated because people do sign up for that class, and because I also teach what our college calls Introduction to Music, which is really like music appreciation, uh, and I also teach history of rock and roll,
Ooh.
and so yeah, so but I'm always a little like, what motivated you to take this class to learn how to read music and write music and all the things? And
Especially if they have no background in music. I mean, you've got to learn somewhere. Yeah, that's what we need to start doing. Because one of the things that I would like to do is go, once I get mobile, um, I want to go and take lessons. So I want to go and try all the things. I'll try the French horn. Oboe is on the list. I don't know why, but it's on the list. It's one
I
of my,
blew in an oboe exactly once, and it was
okay.
like trying to spit concrete through a straw. It was
Why do they
it
make
was like,
something so
oh,
hard?
yeah, my head hurt after.
Okay, well, maybe we'll save it for like the finale.
Yeah,
But it's like I want to try all these different things because I want to show people like it doesn't matter if you're 50 years old when you go to try
no,
something new.
no. I mean, that's uh, I think it's really interesting because my daughter's very musical, and she is really creative, although she will try to tell you she's not. And and I I think I had a ukulele. I think I had just my ukulele was laying around the house. And she's like, "Can I see your ukulele?" And I'm like, "Okay." And then I didn't see it for like a month, and all of a sudden I'm walking by her bedroom and she's playing the ukulele, and I'm like, "Uh, where'd you learn to do that?" And she said, "I watched a video on YouTube."
Yeah.
And um, and so she can play the ukulele, and she plays other things. She was an all-state choir girl, and played saxophone for a while in a jazz band and stuff. But it got
So
hard. It got
fun.
hard. But she was also an athlete. She wrestled in high school, so
These
it got hard to
multi-talented
juggle all the
children.
things. Yes,
It's so hard
it
when you're
is.
so talented in so many different ways.
And
How to
well,
choose.
yeah, and especially when the coach slash band director slash choir director is like, well, you may have to pick here what you're going to do, and I'm like, oh, do you really? uh,
We should have like I like what you did where you said, first I started uh with the cello. Is it the cello? Yeah.
cello, yes,
First I started with the cello and then I went to the
trumpet,
French the French horn?
no,
No.
trumpet first,
Oh, the trumpet.
yes,
Then the French horn.
yes.
And I stayed with the French horn. Then I was like, go pick up guitar. Yeah. Then I stayed with the French horn. Then I went to like I think that more people should do this. And I think so many times we get the kids stuck in a thing and you don't know yet where they
Well,
if they kind of think like you wouldn't have been led to being a bassist had you not kind of walked through maybe the process. You're gonna
uh,
get stuck at the
I
cello.
certainly think that made it more. I was just willing to try one more instrument, and I'm still, willing to try one more instrument. If oh well, uh, I ended up playing mandolin because I did a show. I was booked for a show that would have to play double mandolin in, and I'm like, okay, well I can figure this out. So, and then COVID happened, and I ended up never playing that show. But but that was how I ended up learning to play mandolin, and I do play ukulele and all those things. So.
I think that we just have to be a little more brave.
I was really thankful for my daughter's band directors because they would tell if a kid came up and said, "Well, I know I'm playing bassoon in concert band, but I think I'd really like to try to play saxophone," and they'd be like, "Okay, great.
Love.
Let's try this out." And uh, where when I went to school, that was seen as a big no-no. That
Right.
you should only play one instrument. You can't. No, you can't play flute and trombone. Uh, you have to pick. You have to choose one, and that's what you're going to play the rest of your life. But you know, uh, unless
And
you
you
happen to.
probably were gifted because of the fact that you were an only child. I mean, how could they say
Oh,
no to you?
well, absolutely. I mean, they were when I was a senior in high school. My dad said, "Well, here, come with me. We're going to go over here." And I'm like, "What are we doing?" And he's like, "Oh, yeah, we're just going to go." And he was super vague, which was not my father at all. So I knew something was up. And we went over to the guy who was the principal hornist in the Tulsa Philharmonic's house, and I'm like, "Why are we at Jim Kirk's house?" And that was his name, honest to goodness. And I'm like, "Why are we here?" And so my dad whipped out his checkbook and bought a French horn from him that he was selling, and so that was the horn I went to college with, um, and
Love that.
yeah, and my parents bought me one electric guitar and then said all the rest are on you. And I'm like, okay. So
I just thank God for the parents that encourage their children to be creative and tell them to go for it. And I believe in you. And of course you can. And
yeah,
why not? And yeah, go and do the thing. Because man, do we need them
we
out
do.
there making our music for us.
And even if I I get into this philosophical discussion at times about, well, what is the point of education? Is it to know things or is it to be a better person?
Hmm.
Because in my world, it's to be a better person, and that's why you need to take music appreciation. Maybe you've never heard Mozart before. Maybe you've never heard Vivaldi. Maybe you've never heard these composers. And if you say, "Wow, I really like that. I enjoy that music. I'm going to go start going to the whatever the local symphony is in your
Yes.
town." Okay, great. But people don't always correlate though to have that symphony. You have to have those 6-year-olds sawing away on those half-size violins, uh,
Yes.
and because if you don't have that, you never get the other end. So
Okay. So as a professor, what's one piece of advice that you feel like every student needs? And not just for your class, but just
right.
going into furthering their education. What's something that that you see them really struggling with?
The thing that I see most people struggle with when they come in, and especially because sometimes we have um, military dependent families that have homeschooled their kids, and I get that because you've moved around so much
Right.
that having kind of a linearity to their education is iffy. I get that from going to state and country to country and all those things. And they're like, "Well, I don't know what I want to do." There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
The statistically, the degree you graduate from college with isn't what you're going to do for a living.
I don't know how we
I don't know how we got there.
I also don't know how we help them be okay with, like, I think the 20s is the time to just mess up a little.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Do a year of this and a year of that and go hither and yon. I think they should all be demanded to travel. I think they should all take a gap year and send them off to a different country and a different culture and
Uh,
have to live with a different kind of family, with a different system, and just and see, like, oh, because it's just so insular in our little town with our little family, with our little
Right.
friends that you can't even imagine.
That is part of the reason I structured my foundations of music class the way it is, that we use software. I don't want to depend on, oh, you didn't take piano for 10 years. Oh, I'm sorry. We're just not we just can't help you then. Um, so we use software that you don't really have to play an instrument. It will help you along. You can write out the names of chords and it will play them for you to see if that's the chord you like. So you don't have to figure out a voicing and figure out, oh, no, wait, I can only reach an octave. I can't play 7 notes at the same time. So, um, some of those things uh, and, but that software is freeware. They don't have to stop when class is over. They can keep doing this for as long as they want to keep doing it. I mean, um, and then in my great sort of chain of things that maybe they show their kids how to do that, and maybe
Right.
it gets passed along that way. And that's sort of my dream world is that and do you let your kids paint all over? Okay, fine, do that. My uh, I was never one of those kids that drew on the wall, but my dad had kind of worked in the garage a lot, and so I painted stuff on the inside of the garage door with like house paint and house paint brushes. And he never told me no, so I just kept
It was
doing it.
encouraged from a
Yeah,
young age. It's
yeah,
okay to play. It's
yeah,
okay to be creative. I mean, it's back to that thought process that being creative is just leaving the door open to be playful.
absolutely. And
What if you mess it up? What if I do?
yeah, and we'll just
What if you're terrible at it? Okay.
okay. Well, and sometimes I do think we have to try something to find out that that's really not for us. That's not
Right.
really a good thing. I am always jealous of visual artists uh, because I look at stuff and I actually incorporate that into my when I teach uh, music appreciation. That I talk about corollary visual art because a lot of times people have seen those paintings, but they haven't heard this music. But now they can kind of put those two things together.
Mhm.
Uh, I
I can do that.
I am a kinesthetic learner, so I understand. So I try to hit all those learning modalities, and when I'm teaching, um, and it's e- e- just the connected. But I can't do art. I am red green colorblind. In fact, I'm worse than that. But uh, one eye is red green colorblind, and one eye is green red colorblind. So
Oh, no.
so, so
I
I've
don't know what color it is. I'll wear
yeah
black.
yeah yeah. I only wear black because I can't find anything darker, and um, the art teacher's room is across the hall, and I'm always just like, I'm like that kid staring in the window because I'm just
It
like, look
it
at
never
that.
ceases
That's
to
so
amaze me,
cool.
and I know they think of us the same way.
Yes,
They don't know how do you make those things go together and make such a pretty sound? And I'm going, how did you know to shade on that
exactly.
part, and then suddenly there's a
Yeah.
three-dimensional nose? Like what do you like, or people that sculpt, they
Yes.
take a big mound of stuff and then they whittle it down, and I go, I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't get it. It blows my
And I'm like, how
mind.
did you know to crosshatch that instead of smudge that to make
Right.
that look just that? I don't. Yeah, it just escapes me. I don't get it
If
at
I
all.
could have that talent, I'm with you. So much jealousy for people that can draw or sculpt or anything like that. I'm absolutely blown away. I mean, I still feel the same way about anybody that can play an instrument that I can't play, or sings way better than I do. I really do love it all. That's why we have to have it, and they got to keep it in the schools. These poor children will shrivel up and be miserable humans. It's like, why is anxiety so high? We don't have enough arts in school.
Well, we have too many tests and not enough art. Uh,
Yes. Yes. I
you
don't
know,
care where they're at. I have a really hard time. So this is like my second set of children that I'm putting through school. So my older children are 25 and 23, and then I have a 8-year-old who's almost 9, and I have a 7-year-old. And these people call me from the elementary school and they're like, "Oh, he wrestled a kid to the ground." And I'm like, "Well, he's 7." and they were playing tackle football.
Yeah.
So there's that. Well, he has a hard time paying attention, and he kind of rolls around the floor during reading time. It's like, well, you only give him 20 minutes a day to play outside, and you try to make sure that they write all the stuff down before they color. So I just, he can read. I'm just so glad that he can read, and you're teaching him how to add and subtract. But I'm going to tell you, there could be so much more learned if you would just put a little more art into everything that you're teaching them and incorporate it that way. Turn the music on while they're
Yeah.
learning.
It's my son, who's now 28. Is that right? 28, yes. Was his kindergarten teacher would put on really not very loud, but classical music during
Yes.
nap time. And she said, and the kids just get all relaxed. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, it has a
Yes.
literal and actual effect. And for those kids out there where we're saying these high volumes of ADD kids, it's like put a little something on in the background, piano, just plain piano, instrumental piano, something, some classical music, something without words or whatever it is, and
Right.
watch the focus come in. Them to be able to drown out the person that's shifting in their chair or who tapped on this thing, then they have that, and then it'll just go. And we won't, we can't, that would be what if it's distracting to one of the, I was like, no, I really feel like you can make more activities with art to learn all of the things that you're doing.
I do. This is a thing I've thought about from time to time because both my parents are gone, and so being an only child, I have
That's rough.
cousins and things, but I remember my father telling me that he ran into my kindergarten teacher like years later. She was a volunteer at something. I don't remember what he told me she was volunteering for. But he recognized her, and of course she didn't remember me because she only taught like kindergarten for like 35 years or something. So, and
17,000 students
yeah,
later.
exactly. But she had all these little song things that for us to clean up, and it was time to line up. And she played piano, and so she had a piano in her kindergarten classroom. And so
Yes.
she would play these. She'd made up all these little song things she would play for us. And she shared with my father that she was, I think, on her the last year she was actually going to teach, and she had a student teacher come in. And the student teacher was just marveling that was still using all those same little songs and things. And the teacher, this student teacher was like, well, can you teach me all of that? And she's like, honey, no, like you got to find your own way.
Right.
But whatever that way is, maybe you don't play piano. Maybe you could just put little snippets of things on your laptop to play. But you
Right.
got to find your way to do it. I can point it for you, Bodhisattva. I can show you the way. I can't take you there.
Right.
Uh,
My older kids still talk about that. The clean up,
yeah,
everybody, every day, clean up, clean up. It helps a lot. Anyway, I find it such a hard conversation to have with people who don't see the value in music. And I'm like, but are you sure you don't? Because tell me your favorite song when you were in high school, when you got your first car. I bet you
yeah.
can. What was your favorite song in high school when you got your first car? What music was playing in your car that you played over and over again? Do you remember?
Do I remember?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there were several. There was Queen's News of the World album.
Yes.
There was also lots of Phil Keaggy, and there was also a lot of Sweet Comfort Band. Uh,
Okay.
and
What was the song at your wedding?
um,
It doesn't have
Actually,
to be the song, but a song you remember from your.
um,
I'm asking the wrong
we
person. I should ask your wife.
we, we left. We walked back out the aisle to Mussorgsky's picture at an exhibition. The
Okay, I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, the Great Gate at Kiev. Yes, you'll know it if you hear it.
Okay. I'm
Uh,
better with hearing things than knowing the names of them.
yes,
Okay.
and
And then what's a song that you either sang to your children or that your kids really liked a lot when they were little?
My kids. I don't know. I always go back and forth about whether I ruined my children or just this.
No, you made them better. I'm gonna go. You made them
Um,
better.
I the so- my daughter loved Sticks, and I don't know. I had like a greatest hits CD or something, and she would just be screaming at the top of her lungs, singing along
Love,
with Sticks in the back seat when she was like 4, and it's
love.
hilarious. Then they also liked a Canadian band that was called Chilliwack.
Uh-huh.
They were like a one and a half hit wonder in the early days of MTV, and they had a
Love.
song called "Gone, Gone, Gone," and both my kids loved that song. Um, and my daughter loved Pat Benatar, and would go around singing "Hit Me with Your Best Shot" when she was like 7. Um, and
Those are my favorite where kids are singing a song and you're like, you don't know what that means. But
yeah,
here my 8-year-old is obsessed with a Sabrina Carpenter's song Taste. And I was like, oh, okay. I guess you can listen to this, you know. And then Justin Bieber's is my son's favorite, Yummy. Yeah,
yeah.
you got that yummy, yummy. Oh, great.
Well, you can just think ahead to that day when they're in their late teens or early 20s and that song comes on and they start singing and go,
Exactly. Why did you, and then they blame me. Why did you let me listen to this when I was like, you think I had control of I don't know where you even heard the freaking song.
exactly. Yes.
As you got Sabrina Carpenter.
Yeah.
Sabrina Carpenter is adult listening right now.
Yes.
Some real adult listening and some adult watching. How do you end up getting these gigs? Just people know you in the area
Yes.
or
It's really about who you know. And you just and I because my wife was reminding me of this. She's like, we because we moved. I lived in Branson. I played in Branson for some years. I was in Andy Williams' band the year he passed away.
wow.
Um, and I've gotten to play with. I played with a top 10 American Idol finalist package show. So I
Very
played with like
cool.
some of those things. I also played with the Four Seasons, and it, uh, did it was like a tribute show, and I played for one of those. I was at a
What's your most favorite gig you've ever done?
my favorite thing that I have done musically, there's two. I played in a pit production, played the pit for a production of Newsies at this enormous outdoor theater that's just outside of Kansas City, like 2,000 plus people in the audience. Uh, Huge stage, so they could really do the cast of thousands thing. So the stage is full of singers and dancers, and we got to the finale, and the crowd was singing so loud that I could not hear what was coming off the stage anymore, and I had monitors, and
Wow.
and that was just like your hair stood up. It was like one of those moments that the crowd was so pulled in to that. Um, and I did a show just a couple of years ago. I did Natasha Pierre and the Great Comet of 1912, 1812. I always get this wrong, that part of the show wrong. And the band was packed in like we're like I'm like shoulder to shoulder with the drummer, not really, but pretty close. And and we were like crammed in because we were actually in the set because part of the show is they're in this club, and so the band's all kind of packed in there. And the venue was not very big, and we had people. Uh, Literally sitting in the orchestra pit in the where the band was. We had like people are sitting all around us, not like theater in the round, but like
Right.
they're right there. And I looked up. We were doing this song toward the end and it's a very emotional show. And I looked up, and a guy that I had just done another show with, I did Next to Normal with him. He was a musical director, keyboard player guy, and he was crying, and I almost started crying because he was crying. And it was just like, it was one of those moments that just, it was such an intimate space, and the crowd was totally vested in all of it, right there. And it was one of those shows that it seems like it was greater than the sum of its parts. I mean, somehow it just rose up above that.
Magic.
I did one of the first shows I did actually here in Kansas City was Bright Star, the musical that Steve Martin wrote with Edie Brickell. Um, and uh, just another, not a big room. I think it seats 120, 130, and at times it seemed like there were more of us than there were of them. But the audience is so pulled into those smaller venues, and I like doing theater in the park. It's lots of fun when you have those 1,000 plus, 2,000 plus nights that are they're great. But there's something about those little intimate spaces and doing those shows that is just, uh, I feel like the audience comes along for the ride a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
But I did Meet Me in St. Louis. Was that last? I think that was last
Ooh,
summer, and
one of my favorite musicals.
I was playing banjo in that show, uh, playing guitar and acoustic guitar and banjo, uh, and so I got home from the show, and because it's an outdoor show, it's a tough show because you have to load in and load out every night because we're
Mm,
not covered and all that
right.
stuff. So loaded out, drove home, and I got out of my car, and I could hear this child screaming, and I was like, "What was that?" And uh, and then I realized that it was a child's voice screaming, "Meet me in St. Louis, Louis, meet me at the fair," just as loud as she could possibly scream it. And it was our, like, across the cul-de-sac neighbors and little girl. And I laughed so hard about couldn't get in the house. It was, it's just like,
I love
and
it.
that was all the words she knew. So she was just singing, "Meet
Yeah,
me in St. Louis, Louis, meet me at the fair,
that's it.
meet me in St. Louis."
As they all do. That's the only
That
part
was
I
the
know,
set of
Mom.
lyrics she latched onto, and because that's the finale, so everybody's singing, and it's a thing. So, yeah. But those are I don't I have a few pit horror stories that are not that grand, but somehow seem funnier in retrospect. I was in an orchestra pit, and I honestly don't remember what show it was, and the power went out. So the bass guitar, and of course, because it's a pit orchestra, we had like 3 keyboard players and percussion and all of this. And the pit at that stage was a little weird. There was like a step up in the pit, so the conductor and the strings are sitting on one level, and everybody else is sitting on a level that's below. So I was trying to get the director's attention that we had no power, that the power was we were in the pitch black dark down below, but the strings and the conductor are up, and the pit is open on top, so they had ambient light from the stage. They didn't realize anything had happened, and so he starts conducting, and all that's happening is the strings are playing.
He's like, hello, the
Right.
rest of
And he's
you.
trying to look into the black, and then somehow realizes that he can't see us because there's no.
That
Um,
is a nightmare. I don't know how you recover from stuff like that. How long was it out?
um, it seemed like a long time.
Yeah.
Probably
Every second that goes by when something we get like, this is
yeah.
not what we're supposed to be doing. We're not supposed to be looking at each other right now.
I'm like, it must be 11:30 or something because
Is it over? Should we go?
should we just leave now? You know,
Okay, I
the
have a question
yeah,
about, I think that sometimes when you have this feeling like, okay, I know that I'm going to go to Nashville, and I'm going to start being a session musician, and then I'm going to get in a really cool band that I really love, and then we're probably going to travel the world, and it's going to be really amazing, and I'm going to be rich beyond my wildest dreams, and I'm going to do what I love every single day, and it's going to be amazing. And then it doesn't quite go that direction because I don't know, somebody didn't get the map that you set
right.
out for the
Yes.
world and the universe, and you go a different way. I would like, because I think it sounds like to me that your life has been a fulfilling life, that you haven't stopped doing music despite the fact that maybe you're not, in a worldwide recognized band traveling the universe for the last 30 years. But it sounds like you've had a fulfilling career and you're still doing music. What do you say to those that feel like success is only defined by fame? And how do you adjust your happiness or your contentment to include like the life that you've had, where I don't think that there'd be anything about your life that I'd be like, oh, this is not how I thought it would go, and this is terrible. It seems like it's gone well for you. But for somebody who thinks that fame is the only answer, what would your advice, thoughts?
Well, I think it would be this, that um, I think about it in the same way that I think about like football. Because how many kids play pee wee football? And then how many of those kids play football in middle school? And then how many of those kids go on to play in high school? And then how many of those go on to play in college? And then how many of those are professional football players? Uh, the older I am, the more convinced I am that talent and fame don't really have anything to do with each other. Uh, Not that that famous people aren't talented, but I certainly know some profoundly talented musicians whose names you would not know at all,
Right.
and they're pretty content with their life. That they've done things. I know band directors. I know people that uh, repair instruments, that kind of these ancillary sort of things, which is where I found myself for a few years. And I can tell that story if you want. But what is it? What is it that I like sleeping at home in my bed pretty much every night. I, uh, I did my fair share of bus riding around when I was in college marching band, and yeah, I can live without that. And but if you do that, if that is what feeds your soul, more power to you, not me. Um,
But
it
there is beauty in more than one way to
Absolutely,
have a life that is full of music, because I feel like your life is full of it,
yeah, absolutely. Nope,
and still find success just to find in a different way than maybe you thought when you were 21.
absolutely. You know, uh, I I was in some bands when I was younger that uh, one particular one that I thought we were going to go do the thing. The record labels showed interest in us, and then whatever reason was, it just didn't happen. Uh, and I've played in bands. I played with a band that some of the guys had been playing together like since they were teenagers, and they were in their 40s then. Uh, and sometimes they made great money and were kind of well known regionally, and sometimes not. And they just didn't care. They just got out and did whatever they wanted to do. And uh, I I have know people that have played in some of those shows in Branson and other places like Branson, Myrtle Beach, and in Eureka Springs, and name the places. Um, and they do what they do, and and at some point, I think you kind of have to introspectively say, was that really what I wanted, or did I just want to be able to do my craft and share my knowledge and live that life? And isn't that a fulfilling life? Well, it certainly is.
Yes.
And
I
so,
just I think it's really important to highlight there isn't just one way to do it.
no,
I think a lot of people, the person that I talked to, I guess it was 2 weekends ago, he was like, when I came out to LA, my goal was to be as famous as, fill in the blank. And he was like, and now, it's like it's adjusted, and he's, maybe 8 or 10 years older. It's like allow it to adjust. You grow up and you think that your life is going to be one way. I was going to get married at 24, have children at 27, be done by the time I was 29. I was like, I've done all these different things. I didn't do any of those things in the way that I thought that I would, but my life has been good.
Right.
And I'm not done. And I'm changing my route at, almost
and
50.
and maybe the overarching thing is just don't give it up.
Right.
Don't lay it down. And
Right.
you may have some dry spells. When we first moved up here near Kansas City, I think I went 2 years, 2.5, without playing anywhere.
Yeah.
Just because we moved, I didn't know people. Didn't really know anybody. Got a few names from people and reached out to them, and they're like, yeah, yeah, okay. And and I have I've worked with a trumpet player a couple of times, and he was like, well, why? How do you get all these gigs? And I'm like, it is really just who you know, and that's
And you have to be friendly and be kind and talk to people and go places and ask and be persistent and
yeah. I mean, I have a couple of musical directors that will call me anytime they have a show and say, can you do this? Are you available? I always try to make myself available for them if I can. Um, but it's the great circle of life. The more you do that, then the more people know you, and then the more um, I got the job with Andy Williams Band because a saxophone player that I had played with a couple of times and taught with, he was also teaching at the same little college I was teaching at. The bass player that they had, I don't know what happened. Something happened. He had to leave the band on pretty short notice. And he called and said, "Hey, do you have a gig right now?" And I'm like, "No, I'm just around. What are you doing?" And he's like, "Well, I'm going to give them your phone number because they're looking for a bass player." What? Okay. So I load up my little bass amp and my bass and go over to this guy's house that I've never met, and he plops down some sheet music and says, "Can you play this?" And yeah, I can play that. Well, play it for me. So I did. Um, and then said, "Well, I just wanted you to know that was not a great audition, but it was a pretty good audition. But I got the gig, so I didn't know what that meant."
so okay, so you're saying you were hoping for mediocre and anything too good you were going to have to turn down. Okay, well, I'm glad I hit the mark. Perfect. Whatever that meant. Trying to humble you before you went done. Like, don't
Yeah,
be
I
thinking you're
know.
too big for your own britches, sir.
Yeah,
You're just good enough.
yeah. That's
Okay.
all. Yeah, I can't. I do. And I called my wife, and she's like, "Well, did you get it?" I'm like, "I don't have any idea."
I don't know what just happened there.
I just
And
can't figure what went on right there.
okay, I
So
think that we are going to enter my 7 rapid fire questions that are neither rapid, full of fire, nor do you have to answer quickly, but you mostly answer
okay,
slow. And a lot of people find them hard, but I think they're easy and interesting.
okay,
I'm trying to work on a full sentence for that because I was just going to say rapid fire, and every time I do that, people get terrified, and then they think they're easy when I say, "No, you don't have to answer them quickly," and then they think they're hard. Anyway, it's great, and I love
yeah.
it, and I love it, and so I will continue to do it. What what would be your ideal vacation? And this could be a place that you go, or things that you do, or both.
Um, that is okay. Um, there. I went on a cruise for the first time. Just not. Well, actually, I've been on two, but the first one was a Disney cruise, and I felt like that didn't count. And so my wife and I went on a cruise, and there I saw every musical grouping that they had on the boat, and I thought maybe I should just do this. maybe I should just maybe when I retire, whatever that
Yes.
means when you're a musician, because I don't think you ever do,
Right.
but maybe I should just look into doing this. I mean, there'd be worse things than playing every day, and
Yes.
so yeah.
Ooh, guys, are we thinking about that? That's a lot. I mean, if you think about, I think I've heard of some people who did that for a period of time, like
Mhm.
singers that have done it.
Right,
I was like, okay, it was like really intense because I sang every single day. But if you wanted an, kind of an intense,
right.
kind of scenario with a whole different a bunch of different people, and you want to travel for a little while and get your feet wet, that
Because
might be a
they
thing to do.
because they had a rock band, they had like a string quartet-ish sort of group. They had some piano players that were playing solos and sometimes with other groups of, like with the string quartet. And they had some solo guys that were had their loop pedals out and doing all the stuff. And
Love that
uh,
loop
then
pedal. I'm obsessed with a loop pedal.
yeah,
I
and
don't know anything about it really, except that I want it
yeah.
and want to learn how to do it.
Yes. And it's and and some of them kind of floated in and out with these different ensembles, and I'm like, yeah, I could do that. I could be down with playing
Yeah.
string bass all day with a jazz quintet or something. And yeah,
Okay,
I could
that's
definitely
your
see that.
future. I
Yeah,
like that. Okay, what is your most favorite concert that you've ever attended and one that you would like to attend?
boy. Um, Once you start working as a musician, going to concerts, it gets really hard to do. Um, I I think the best concert I think that I've ever been to was I saw Kansas with Shooting Star as the opener, and that was pretty amazing. I I don't even know how I pulled this off, but somehow got third row seats, and so I was right down there amongst it, uh, and that's pretty wonderful. I would like to see the current version of Kansas, but I always have something always playing somewhere when they come through town, and I can't ever get back. Um, and I'm at the point in my life that a lot of the people that I saw when I was younger are not touring. And, they've retired from touring, so uh, that that gets a little weirder. So one of my students asked me is there any band that I would like to have seen in their heyday that I did
Right.
not get to see. And I would certainly have to put like Chicago on that list
Mm.
with Pete Cetera, uh, um, but and with Terry Kath, the early Chicago before things started to go where they went with Chicago. Um,
Okay. The next question. Most overrated and underrated holiday.
okay. So I mentioned the colorblind thing before. So I think Fourth of July is highly overrated. I can't see any of those colors, so it's just like, okay. And it mostly just hurts my ears anymore. Um,
And what about an underrated holiday?
an underrated holiday. That's really good. Hmm. Uh, this is a funny thing because my wife grew up very very differently than I did. I'll just say that. And so her family gave gifts at every holiday. They got
Oh,
stuff for Easter and stuff for Christmas and stuff for Groundhog Day and stuff. It just seems like,
oh,
and I didn't grow up that way at all. You got gifts on Christmas and your birthday,
yeah,
and so that was a little bit of a culture shock for me when we had kids. And she's like, "Well, we've got to get the kids stuff," and I'm like, "For what?" And
right. For
so
Valentine's Day, for an
yeah,
Easter basket, a Fourth of July basket, a
yeah,
President's Day basket. You could be president too.
yeah.
Here's a cookie.
So, so I I don't know. I have always sort of had this probably unreasonable objection to Valentine's Day, just because it becomes so obligatory that
I feel like it's a lot of people's answers. Um, And I just like, and everybody has kind of a little bit of a different reason, but a lot of the same reasons that people don't like Valentine's Day are the same reason that some people don't like Christmas. I like Valentine's Day because it's pink and it's red and it's sparkly and it's bows and it's everything super girly, which I am. So, but the whole thing of making people feel sad if they don't have a partner to give them the things, it's like, oh, for
Right.
heaven's sakes, quit it.
When I was teaching at a bigger school than I teach at now, that I used to walk in and I would put candy on the table when in the classroom I would go into and be like, Happy Valentine's Day or Singles Awareness Day or Hallmarkian Day,
Yeah.
whichever you celebrate. Uh,
Yeah. It's tough for a lot of people. Okay, what is a weird food combo that only you enjoy?
I am not the only one that enjoys it, but when I tell people what it is, they always look at me like I have lost my mind, which is always a possibility. But I take bugles, you know, the chips bugle.
Yes, the ones you put on the fingers,
Yes, yes. And
tips of your
you
fingers.
warm up peanut butter and squirt them in the bugles and dip that in chocolate almond bark.
That sounds like that would be great.
It's pretty wonderful. My kids always ask for me to do that at Christmas time. I don't know why Christmas, but we always do it at Christmas time.
I'll be making this. I will be making this. This is a yes. See, sometimes I do this and I'm just like, just tell me something that's like good to eat. What are we eating? Normally I normally say weird food combo or something decadent that you feel like everybody should try, but you basically did both because that's something decadent that I will be trying. That sounds delicious. What is the kindest thing anyone has ever done for you or said to
Or
you?
said to me, okay, that one's good. I played in a band with uh, Grammy Award winner Dave Rayner, uh, who's not a household name, and because he is known both as a singer and but is also a heck of a guitar player, and but he's a great songwriter, and that's what he actually won. Denise Williams sang one of his songs that won for
Mhm.
best gospel recording one year, and I got fired from a I got fired from Andy Williams because it was a whole thing, and they actually ended up firing like everybody in the band one by one. And I called Dave, and because he was also in the band, and he was like, and it was like, Dave, they just fired me, and he's like, and after he swore a little bit and and pulled himself together, said, they didn't fire you for the way you played. And right in that moment, that meant, I think, more to me than anything anyone could have said.
Sometimes people do not realize that the things that they say have such incredible impact
Absolutely.
that however many years later you go, yeah, okay, thanks for that.
Yeah.
Just and and you just you hold on to that.
Yeah.
I love this one.
Yeah. That was really uh yeah, that was probably one of the most profound things that anybody's
And what did
uh,
you take from that?
uh you know, if you're in the game long enough, you'll get fired. It's like being in radio or being in television. If you're in the game long enough, you will get fired. Um and when you're playing in those bands, sometimes it's not anything that you did, but things shift around you. Like the politics of a band are sometimes really an odd thing. And um, I had a actually he was a student of mine at another college I taught at, and he got a job with a well-known Branson uh, theater, and he was just like over the moon excited. And I said, Brad, I don't want to take anything from you, but just know, because this theater had a reputation for hiring and firing a lot. Um, and I said, just know that someday it will end, and there's nothing. And I'm trying not to be a downer, but it's not you. That's the thing you have to remember. It's not personal. although it can be personal. But you know, they moved on because they found somebody they wanted more than they wanted you, or somebody that would work cheaper than you would work, or whatever it was. But when it's over, just let it go, let it be over, and move on, and do your things. And I feel like that a lot of people don't in the music business don't head in with that mindset.
Well, I mean,
Uh,
I feel like music is something that's really vulnerable, and it's part of your, it's part of your offering, right?
yes,
And like, how could you reject my offering? I put my all in it. I put,
absolutely.
I physically put my body into making it as good as I can. My desire is for it to be the greatest thing ever. Whether you're the greatest musician ever is irrelevant because of
Right.
what you put into it, right? And so then, therefore, it's like, are you rejecting the core of me?
Right. And you know, and I see because now I'm around many more music theater folks, and you know, and I hear them talk about, well, I went to this audition for this theater company, or this, you know, group of shows that they were audition. Sometimes they do group auditions where they like have all the producers of like the next 5 shows there, and they get to kind of pick who they want for things. And I remember hearing this actor say, and I went for like 6 years in a row and never got offered a role. So I'm not going again. And I'm like, how bad does that hurt? That you went out there and as you said, just bared your soul. You metaphorically walked out there naked and said, "Here I am," and
It's like, no, thank you.
they said, "No, that's okay." But you have to have a certain amount of, I don't know what the best term would be for it, self-realization, to know that because you got turned down, or you got fired, or the show went out of business, or whatever it was, um, that is not really a reflection on you.
I mean,
Uh,
okay, if you go back and look at Chapel Roan, I don't know if you're familiar with her, but she had a huge song called Pink Pony Club. She was singing it at a park with her keyboard, like in 2018. Oh, look what you've done. I'm a pink pony girl. And she's out there. And now she's at the Grammys
right,
winning new artist. But we're talking 7 years later. It's the
right,
same song. The song wasn't bad,
right,
right? It just, the song had its time.
right, right,
And when the time and the song and the artist all lined up with whatever it's supposed to line up with, which is somewhat miracle magic, something that we don't know
yeah,
what it is,
the lightning in a bottle.
right?
Yeah,
And it just went poof, and there she goes. And then she has this whole like, oh my god, I don't like this fame thing, and paparazzi are weird, and people on the internet are weird, and people are walking up to just like, oh yeah, that's the thing you didn't know was coming. You just wanted to make music.
right, right,
you just you just wanted to sing songs that you felt like you couldn't sing in your old hometown.
right,
You just wanted to put your heart out there and have a couple people that were like, that touched me, that really, or whatever. You wanted to
right,
inspire a couple, but you didn't know you're going to inspire the world on accident in 2024. But it doesn't have to be that. And number two, it doesn't mean that the song wasn't good in 2018.
right. Precisely. And that doesn't mean that the song you wrote, or the music that you played, or the whatever it was bad or wrong, or fill in the blank here, whatever it was. Sometimes it's just not right. You know,
Right.
the moment is
I think
not
it's
right.
timing. But I do think that, like what you said about persistence, whatever it is, if you want to do music, then continue to do it and never give up on it, even if you've lost your connections for 2.5 years.
Right.
Know
Absolutely.
that it will come back around and still continue to go and be like, hey, I went to this, I went to see the symphony in my local area and I talked to the conductor or I talked to the musical director or whatever. And I just said, hey, I just want to introduce myself. I'm new to the area. I happen to play bass. I also play guitar. If you ever know or need, or just letting you know, I just want to introduce, this was such an amazing performance. How great. I also met so and so and they seem so great. And then you meet them and it's like, and you just start putting yourself out there and keep doing the thing, and you just don't know. The surest way to be sure that you're going to fail or never do it again is to quit entirely.
Yes, and I
So
mean
just don't quit.
that's and I've seen that happen a couple of times when I was in Branson, that someone, and the circumstances don't even matter. Lost the gig, the show went out of business, it doesn't really matter. And suddenly they were without a gig. Well, what do you do? Do you go somewhere else? That's a fair thing to do. You know that you're not probably going to hit the ground running there. I
Right.
mean, Mozart couldn't even pull that off. So,
Right.
so when he moved from Salzburg to Vienna, he thought that he'd say, "I'm Mozart," and people would just throw money at him. And that didn't work out. So, um, uh, so I think there is some kind of fortitude that you have to have. That uh, uh, One of the ways I felt like I put myself out was when I substitute taught. And so I could meet all the band directors and all the choir directors and things in the area. And just not all, I mean, and I didn't ever meet all of them, but I met some. And would say, well, if you're going to be gone, I could sure come do your class. And, then they get to know you a little bit, and then your name, then somebody else hears your name. And, it's fairly organic, to tell you the truth. It's,
It's
that,
being friendly and putting yourself out there and being willing to make friends with people that you just don't know. Like one of my another person that I interviewed was talking about, you need to go to open mic nights. If you want to be a performer, you need to be at open mic nights. Because guess who's at an open mic? Somebody else who plays the guitar, somebody else who plays
right,
the piano, somebody who produces, who's looking to somebody to produce. So like you just don't, it's not just like you're going to go there and there's going to be a Sony exec that's waiting to sign you up for a
right,
record deal. It's not the point. The point is you're getting into the community, the music community, wherever you are. And I
right.
feel like there's so many different ways to do it now.
And that is another big thing. If you say you're going to be somewhere, be there.
Right. Be a person of your word.
Yes,
Answer your emails. Answer your
yes,
DMs. Listen to your voicemail mess. I know it's hard. I feel like, one of the things that I'm learning, even in doing this podcast, is like I'm having to figure out how to be a little tiny business.
yes.
And I'm going, mm, these are things I've never thought about before. Um, okay. Yeah,
Well,
and
was
and
it on
having
Threads? Did you put this out on Threads? Was it Threads or Instagram? And you said
threads.
Threads. So that's
Mhm.
where I saw you. It was on
Yeah.
Threads. And
Yeah.
you said, "Does anybody want to be on my podcast?" And I'm like,
Listen,
21-year-old me would never have shot you that text on Threads. Absolutely not.
well, I'm proud of you. I hope you're proud of yourself. Because it's the craziest thing. All this kind of, I mean, it's crazy for me, and I'm sure it's a little bit of crazy for you, but it's just so freaking fun that I'm like, I could do this till I'm 112 easily. Okay, we got to go. We've got two more
Okay.
questions. Oh, we've been talking forever, but I'm good at keeping people talking. Um, what is a personality pet peeve of yours?
The personality pet peeve for me is that person that is skilled at what they do, like you'd like to reach out to them and say, "Hey, could you play on this?" and they never call you back. I'd rather get no than never hear from you.
Right.
And that
Why
makes it
can't
hard
people
for
just
me.
give you an answer?
Yeah, and
That
no
is
is
so
okay. I
hard, like a
understand.
standard
Yeah,
answer.
I understand no, because
Right.
we all got things,
Right.
and whatever. You may be playing something else, or maybe you're planning to be out of town. Okay, but you could tell me that.
Right.
And
I agree with that. I wish there was like a standard, like especially when you're like applying for like with resumes and you're applying for a
yes,
job. And it's like, I've applied to 50 jobs. How many people have gotten back to you? One? It's
I
insane.
was I was talking about that with one of my high school friends, and just that. when we were when we were young men and applying for jobs, if they didn't hire you, they would call you and say, "I'm sorry, we're going to go another way, or we found someone who'd
Right.
already done this job before." They would kind of tell you why they didn't hire you, and now your guess is as good as mine. If they,
No,
they
there's
didn't like you.
4,000 applicants and we can't be bothered. And we can't set up an automatic something with a bunch of emails in it because we're can't be bothered, I guess. Okay, lastly, what are your words to live by?
That okay. That's not just there's maybe several words. Um, One of the things I think that you have to be, if you're going to be in the music business in any part of it, whether you're a studio engineer or a performer or a lighting director or a front of house guy, a monitor man, whatever it is, you have to be comfortable with you.
Mm,
You need to be comfortable in your skin. Know your limits, but don't let those define you.
no
The other
mercy.
thing is that I think that I would say to somebody is don't lose your dream, whatever that dream is. Uh, the dream may not look like the dream you dream at first, but it you have to. There's something about you got to have your internal compass and know where that. There was a point in my life. This was a weird thing between the first time and the second time I ended up going to college. I was moving sheets plywood with a friend of mine, and he let go before I did, and I broke my pinky. Um, and it swelled up like it was enormous. And I went to the emergency room uh, and was like, "Well, I'm pretty sure I broke my pinky." And they're like, "Oh, you've got much bigger problems than that." And I'm like, "Huh? What?" He's like, "Oh yeah, look at your fingers. Why are you doing that?" And I'm like, "Why am I doing what?" He said, "Look at your fingers. Your fingers are all crooked." Yeah, I've been that way my whole life. And he's like, "Yeah, that's a deformity, and it won't cause you any problems unless you play guitar." I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, yeah. Oh no, you'll have to give up the guitar. There's just not any chance that's gonna be okay. You're never gonna be able to do that." Uh, and my world broke for about 3 weeks. Um, and I'm like, "Oh no, I'll have to play French horn for a living."
You're gonna have to find a career with that French horn.
and
So I have to start a special band of French horn
yeah,
people.
I'll have to be the world's only French horn rock band or something. And
One man
uh,
show.
uh, and then I said, well, because I'd worked at music stores, when I was young, as kind of it's sort of a rite of passage, if you, as a guitar player. And I said, well, I do kind of tinker a lot with guitars, and so I actually went to Roberto Venn School of Luthiery in Phoenix, Arizona, and learned how to build guitars uh, and stringed instruments, those stuff. And thought, well, if I can't be a guitar player, I'll hang out with guitar players. and, um,
Quick to adjust the dream.
so, and really, that's what I thought I would end up doing. And then, um, my my wife's father was a doctor, and I was telling him all this. He said, "That doesn't sound right to me. Here, you go see this guy. He's a friend of mine. He's a hand specialist, and you go talk to him." So okay. So I went to see him, and he did some X-rays and looked at my hands and said, "They told you what?" I said, "Yeah, they told me that." And he's like, "No." He's like, "I had one person with this syndrome that they said you have, and you do have it." He said, "But you have a very mild case." He said, "I did have one patient that did have to give up playing guitar, but her hands were almost mangled looking because of the thing which is called Boutonniere's syndrome. So that's why my fingers are not straight. They all point up on the ends." Um, and
So
he's like,
you're a super gifted guitar player because you're playing with a disability.
and and he was just like, "No." no, you're fine. So it's, you know, um, but if I had let go of that dream altogether, I don't know what I would have done. Maybe I would have got out of music altogether.
I'm
And,
glad you didn't give up.
and
We would not be doing this today.
yes, exactly. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know what I would have been doing, but uh, I look back and go, that was that fork in the road.
Yeah.
Um, and uh, dude, I decided to just take this path, or or should I have, because it did cross my mind. Well, I just sell all my stuff, and then and then I'll do something else. I don't know what I'll do, but find something else to do.
Well,
Um,
I'm glad that you didn't give it up. I have really enjoyed getting to know you today. I just wanted to say, I really hope that as you move forward with the rest of your career, that you continue to get the gigs that give you great joy, and that you find opportunities to teach people that music is all around you and it's in everything that you do, and that there's no end to learning, and you can always adjust your dream to fit the joy and the contentment. You know,
Absolutely.
there's a way to do that. I feel like you're a real testament to, sometimes the dream gets adjusted, but it doesn't mean that it's not a worthy, beautiful outcome.
Right. And if you had told me certainly at 21 and maybe even at 28 that this is what I would be doing, I'm not sure I would have believed you at that point,
Right.
that you teach at a college. And if me now could go back and talk to me then and say, don't panic, you know
Right. This isn't bad.
yeah, we're going to end up teaching at a college, and you're going to be playing, and you're going to be working with shows and doing musicals and sometimes other stuff too, but that's kind of be your thing. And and okay, liar. And
Right. It's like, that's crazy. No,
that's
I'm in a
crazy talk.
famous, yeah, I'm a famous band. I'm a rock star. Like you said, for the kids that play in elementary, middle, high, college, pro, whatever the sport is, the likelihood that you're going to end up doing it for the rest of your life in the same, even in the same capacity,
Right.
is not necessarily reality, but there is a way to do it until you die.
Well,
I
I
think
mean,
there's a way,
but I
if that's
think
what you want.
but I think about how many of those kids, following that progression like in football, but how many of them end up being trainers,
Right. Or
or
work in physical
right,
therapy
or
or whatever, how to
become
be
an athletic
adjacent.
director at a high school, or
There's nothing wrong with being adjacent to the
right,
music industry.
absolutely.
I am literally putting myself in a position to be adjacent to the music industry. I don't I used to think I wanted to be a performer until I thought about touring and children and talent that don't that I didn't feel like I had enough of, or or whatever. But I was like, there's a way, there's for us to find a way to be in the music industry in some way if we choose. So you could be adjacent and that could be happy and
Right.
good.
And because the very best sound guys I ever worked with were musicians.
Yes.
The uh uh and the very very best recording engineers I've worked with were musicians. Even if they didn't necessarily play professionally, but they had that background.
Right.
And so there's just because you did play violin in middle school, that doesn't mean you won't end up working for a symphony orchestra as a
Right.
right, doing something with with the house, the business end of that. You just don't know how where that's gonna go, where that's gonna lead. And um, so don't let that be part of your past, even if it is you are removed from that by chronology or location or whatever it
Right.
is. But that is part of your past, and past makes you, right. That's part
Don't
of.
use a small town as an excuse. Don't
Yeah.
use, I don't have as much talent as this guy or that guy. Don't use, I don't have as much education as this other. Just Just do what you do as best as you can do it. Work your little network wherever you are and do your best to be a part of the music community, because there's somebody that needs you out there doing
and
the thing that you
and
do.
and never, as a performer, never ever forget the sound guy, the lighting director. I try to meet those people even now. Every show I do, I want to shake their hand and tell them they're doing a great job. Hey, hope I see you again at another show. Because you don't referrals come from these strangest places
Right.
sometimes, because I've seen it happen in a production meeting, and the lighting director, the sound guy, the director of the play, the musical director, they're like, oh, we can't find somebody else to play clarinet for the show. And the lighting director or the sound guy or somebody says, wait, I know this. Yeah, hold on, and they'll come up with a name and a phone number, and sometimes that's all it takes to get you, connected with a bigger circle, so
Yeah.
your circles have circles, and that's what, you do.
May we
And
continue to network up.
yes, it just,
Up and on, keep on it. But yeah, I do think the core is being, being a friendly person and being a kind person will go a very long way, no
yeah,
matter where you are. We think this world is so huge. It isn't. It's a
no,
small world. Everywhere you go, you just stay connected to people and be a friendly sort.
yes,
Be a friendly
that's a lot
sort.
of it. Yeah.
Uh, Colvin, thank you so much for being here with me today. It was an absolute delight. I really, really enjoyed it. It was a
Well, thank
lot
you
of
so
fun.
much for having me. I enjoyed it as well. So
All right. Well, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day,
you too.
and we'll talk soon. All
Okay.
right. Bye.
Bye bye.